and also the participants of our government. We really happy to hear that the city council and the regional council has joined us and will participate in the panel work today. The regional state administration unfortunately couldn't participate today. That's why they're gonna be present only through with the introvert, but their representative is going to be present here in the hall as well. What I want to say is that it's quite important for us that the representatives, doesn't matter what kind of level of the government, they should really participate in the discussion. So they shouldn't be restricted only with the greeting words, but we really want to see them participating in the discussion, and also we really want them to voice to the publicity the things, how they see all the problems, or in how they gonna solve that, because they represent government for today. That's why we are going to our intro words, and today we will have a video from the new president of the International Pan-Europe movement, of the Professor Pavlo Barisic.
European friends, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and sincere pleasure to address you today on behalf of the International Pan-European Union. First and foremost, allow me to extend my heartfelt thanks and warmest appreciation to President Ihor Zhaloba, Irina Prodan, and all our Ukrainian Pan-European friends for organizing this remarkable gathering. We deeply admire your unwavering commitment to the European path, a commitment that continues to inspire us all. The Pan-European Union strongly supports Ukraine's swift accession to the European Union. We have consistently stood in solidarity with the Ukrainian people in their courageous resistance against Russian imperial aggression. We continue to advocate for Ukraine's membership in the EU, for stronger military and humanitarian support, and for a resolute response to attempts by the Putin regime to divide and dominate Europe. The topic of this conference, a united Europe and the need for action, could not be more timely and more urgent. We live in a time when old certainties are fading. A multipolar world has emerged, unstable, unclear, and increasingly unpredictable. The transatlantic alliance, once the backbone of the West, is under pressure. The United States is shifting its strategic focus towards the Pacific, and confidence in transatlantic reliability is weakening. Europe must now face a fundamental question. Can it still rely on others to guarantee its peace and security? The answer must be Europe must learn to stand on its own, including in matters of defense and security. In her recent State of the European Union address, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen echoed the pan-European call for greater independence. Crisis, however, often brings opportunity, and today more than ever, the pan-European vision reveals its enduring strength. Over a century ago, Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi called for a united and independent Europe. Today, that vision is no longer just a dream. It is an existential necessity. Europe must redefine its role in the world, not as a force of exclusion, but as a force of responsibility, a defender of freedom, a guarantor of peace, a reliable partner in a world that has lost its balance. To achieve this, Europe must overcome its limitations. It cannot remain an economic giant with a modest strategic presence. It must speak with one voice, live by its values and defend them with courage and clarity. While Ukraine, Moldova, and the countries of Southeast Europe move towards the European Union, imperial powers seek to pull them back, not through dialogue, but through war, threats, and propaganda. Europe's response must be firm and principled. Enlargement is not charity. It is a strategic imperative and moral obligation and a political responsibility. Enlargement must not be held hostage to individual agendas or obstructed without transparency and shared accountability. The countries seeking to join the United Europe do so because they believe in its values. They recognize that even in times of crisis, Europe remains the clearest answer to authoritarian nationalism and imperialism. A united Europe is a model, not only because of its power, but because of its principles. That is why Europe deserves our full and continued commitment. Day after day, it must be renewed, strengthened, and made visible to the world. This is the mission of the Pan-European Union, and it remains our shared task today more than ever. I wish you a successful and inspiring conference full of meaningful dialogue, fruitful discussions, and forward-looking ideas. Long live a free and united Ukraine in a free and peaceful Europe. Thank you for your attention.
Дякуємо.
Thank you. Thank you, Pavel. I also want to give the word to the deputy head of the institution of the transatlantic dialogue, to the head of the department of the head of the referat Central and Eastern Europe of the Hanns Seidel Foundation, Mr. Benjamin Bob. Since the moment when the Pan-Europe Ukraine has started its work and has held its first conference in Kyiv in 2018, since then we have a big partner and who is Hanns Seidel Foundation, and really thankful for this cooperation, for this inner support. And I'm really happy that the new head of the Mr. Benjamin, could be present together with us in the inner contact and innerly support our initiatives. And we have a quite great cooperation and quite great partners that lasts for a long tradition, and which is quite really up to date nowadays and has a really fruitful for today as well. Thanks, Mr. Bob. Word for you.
Chernivtsi this day. It's a great honor to open these remarks by congratulating you, Professor Shalova, on choosing Chernivtsi as the venue for this important conference. This decision, lieber Herr Shalova, is both a powerful sign and a symbol, a city rich in history and culture within the heart of Europe, and at the same time at the crossroads of traditions, and now a place of dialogue about Europe's future. Allow me also to extend warm greetings to the Chernivtsi National University, and heartfelt congratulations on its remarkable anniversary. This institution has stood for learning, for resilience and openness, and today, despite of all current challenges, it's a beacon of knowledge and exchange. When we speak of Europe today, of the idea of European unity, we speak of peace and security in Ukraine, for Ukraine and for Europe. Peace and security. These words may sound self-evident in our societies, but in truth, they are hard-won, fragile, and must be defended again and again. Whoever looks at Central and Eastern Europe, Ukraine in particular, today realizes peace is not a condition, it is a task. After 1945, the bloc confrontation of the Cold War, unjust and inhumane as it was, created a crude form of stability. Stability without freedom, without rights for those who were behind the Iron Curtain. After 1989, that order, built to an important extent by Russian imperialism, collapsed. The hope at that time for a strong common European house was justified, but it proved to be an illusion, especially in Eastern Europe. The war that Russia has brought to Ukraine makes this painfully clear. It shows us also that rhetoric of peace, without the ability to defend it, is meaningless. This war has revealed three truths. First, deterrence and readiness to defend are not relics of the Cold War, but cornerstones of the architecture of peace. Second, security in Europe cannot be conceived without the security of Central and Eastern Europe, and thus also, and above all, Ukraine. Third, Ukraine defends European security. Today, it is both sword and shield. And Europe cannot leave Ukraine alone in this task, or may forget its unique historic role. The states between the Baltic, the Black and the Mediterranean Sea stand at the front line of the new European developments and the new European security order. They warned early on that Russia was prepared to use force to achieve power and geopolitical goals, and that appeasement does not work. Today, no one should dare to say they were not right. And it was also the pan-European movement who was always right with its visionary idea of Europe. The answers from 100 years ago are more relevant than ever. This is even more true in times when we see a new world order arise. The pan-European idea is, as Europeans, our compass in times of global disorder. It reminds us our unity is stronger than all forces of division. This is even more true in times when we see the new world arise. Russia and China rely on power politics and coercion. Europe relies on law, freedom, and partnership. And only through joint action we can defend these values. But it has to become not only more resilient, but also much more active in all ways. Europe is more than a market, it's a promise of peace, freedom, and prosperity, and identity for future generations. In a world of blocs and rivalries, the pan-European idea is our contribution to stability, not as a nostalgic idea, but as a project for the future that protects and unites us. Ukraine is an integral part of the European project, and only in this way will a future for Europe be possible. Ukraine is an integral part, and only with Ukraine, Europe will function in future and be able to meet the challenges that lie ahead. Thank you very much. Glory to Europe. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!
Thanks, Mr. Bob. It was really important words on the future development of Europe, on the safety of Europe. And maybe it's quite symbolic that quite before our conference, one of my best ex-students, Natalia Nachayeva Yurichuk, and who will moderate one of the panels, has gifted me a book of my friend and a colleague of Sergei Troyan, the book that has a name, Identity of a Person and the Border Line. This is something that is quite clear for Ukrainians, but it is something that Europe is facing right now. The Europe is a border, on the border of those who defend the democracy in the world. We are quite in the mid of that holds this mission and that should keep it. And thanks, Mr. Bob. We will go further to our introverts. I want to give a floor to the deputy head of the Chernivtsi regional military administration, Mr. Rodman Hrabi. A word for you, please. Good afternoon, dear participants of the conference, our dear international guests, the founders of the pan-European movement, their active participants. For us, it's a quite pleasure to see that the pan-European movement is taking place in Chernivtsi, in Bukovina. This is a historical European city, the city which has become on the crossroads of many cultures. The city is which has a peaceful coexistence of many nationalities, both European, Romanians, Polish people, Armenians, and German people, and many other nationalities as well. And always here in this city, we also had a place and space for the respect, for the improvement of the soul of the people. And this city has always been a city of freedom. The city has followed the real European values. The city has always shared the values which were founded in 1923 while creating the pan-European movement. We are also we also eager to see the united Europe. Ukraine wants to be the participant of the European Union, and I'm quite sure that we really did our best for this place, because Ukraine nowadays pays an incredible price protecting the democratical values, defending the lives, defending the territorial union of the Ukraine, and I'm sure of the whole Europe as well, because Ukraine nowadays is a shield of Europe. Today, the moderator, Mr. Moderator, said that we should focus on some specific things, and yes, the most specific things that for now exist, it is a complete unition of the Europe, of the powerful Europe that can provide its own defense and security, because the question of the security has become the first thing, because Europe has got challenges since it hasn't had since 1945. The legislation of the world is being damaged, and Europe has to find the forces to unite, to find a possibility to defend the values and those things that Europe has achieved for now. The first thing should be the freedom and the rights of human rights, and nowadays these freedoms and rights must be defended with a power, with a weapon in the hands, because according to the last actions, there is no belief in no one else. The Russian Federation and their friends who do not even represent them as their friends, and they actively support Russia. We see that today the war of technologies, the war has changed completely. It is changing every day, and that's why Europe should unite and move towards this movement. Ukraine will become the part of Europe, and I'm really thankful to our European partners who support us on our Euro integrational movement. I want to see that this movement finishes quite fast and we could become the complete participant of the European Union and a complete participant of the united military architecture of Europe. Because we should face with it like for many years in the future, not 10 and not 20 years. This path that we have in future is a big challenge for us. I understand this is could be a big obstacle to the social standards development in the countries of Europe that are used to high standards of the social life. But nowadays, unfortunately, yes, we should spend a lot for the defense and security, because the aim of the Russian Federation is not Ukraine. The aim of Russia is defending the whole world and attacking the whole world, and the biggest issue is facing the Europe. And if to be specific, I want to specify that currently we try to create many Euro integrational perspectives. One of the latest initiatives that we have been discussing together with our European partners, with Romania, with Poland, with Austria, Serbia, and many other countries, is and also it is about the Transcarpathian initiative. We really want that countries that have the Transcarpathia on its territory, that they should unite each other and they should represent their interests together, to provide the logistic passes, to share the cultural exchange, to make the circle of the Carpathians have the second breath, to have new tourists in our countries, to develop the social standards as well. And I'm quite sure that through the implementation Transcarpathian initiative we could do it together. And we are quite interested in Bukovina to create a logistic new passes, research of the European ways on the territory of the oblast, of the region. And one of our tasks for today that we are facing the war still. A lot of our guys, they really require rehabilitation and support. We must create the rehabilitation hub on the territory of Chernivtsi region, where we could create and unite everything into one network of the whole medical institutions that provides the rehabilitation services. And this this institution is going to be coordinated with the United Coordinational Center. I'm sure that we could overcome this challenge. We could overcome the challenges that we're gonna face with. One separate place we have got the development of the industrial parks on the territory of Chernivtsi Oblast. I'm on Chernivtsi region. Also, we got the ambition to join the integrated strategy of the European Union, and this is our specific task that we are facing. But currently, it's not possible with overcoming the main challenge, which is war, and which is Russian Federation. And I'm quite sure that through the union, through the all initiatives that are included by the Pan-European Union, we could do this and we could overcome that. Because for sure, the united Europe is a place of freedom, the place of providing the democratic ideas and values, and this Europe could become a shield of the whole world, the Europe which can defend the democracy for sure. Glory to Ukraine. Let's unite together and towards the new achievements. Thank you much. Thank you. I will catch your promises, and I really hope that our further conference you're for sure going to participate in the panel discussions together with what was agreed both on the regional government, and you could see some specific steps. You could see the general situation, and I quite agree with you that nowadays the main challenge that we are facing with is the Russian Federation, everything what is connected with that. But also we have got other inner challenge, which is non-effectiveness of the institutions in the look. It is right now we can't get the victory. We must change, and it's really important to see what is your vision and how you improve your institution and through what way it is working, and also how it could work better. Because for sure we quite understand that Russia has got a lot of resources. We unfortunately don't have the resource in such level. That's why we should be more effective in a few steps in advance. I understand it from the army vision. if not us, we wouldn't hold the line. This is thanks to the initiatives, thanks to the common work. That's why I really invite you for the next time together with us to discuss and have a discussion here together, to hear your vision, to see what obstacles people, what issues people facing from your vision, and what people could tip you and could help you on this. And only cumulativeness and effectiveness, you have mentioned about Bukovinian tradition. We have got Otto von Habsburg, and on the buildings on our buildings we could see Viribus Unitis. Only through the common work we could do this. Thanks, sincerely, thank you. We continue our work, and I would like to give a word to a deputy head of the Chernivtsi regional Chernivtsi region. I understand that you're in a rush, so thank you. I provide the word for others.
Шановні друзі,
Good afternoon, dear friends. I am honored to congratulate our guests in Chernivtsi. I want to pass the congratulations from Roman Klachuk, the head of the city. We are honored to have you here, since Ukraine is in the process of European integration. Chernivtsi finds it important to go back to Europe, and all our history and architecture that you see here proves that our city was European for a long time, and we do everything that we can to make it possible to return back to Europe. Speaking of challenges, the City Council is working to implement the European values that we want to attend. And one of the proofs of this process is that Chernivtsi has become #1 in the city on the Transparency Index of government. And that's important because we are trying to prove that the most important thing that can unite us is the values, the freedom, independence, and democracy. Recently, for the past week, we had a lot of important events. It was the Day of the City, and we were working on that, so the weather is appropriate on the Day City, but we have moved it to today. And we have celebrated 150 years since the foundation of Chernivtsi National University. These dates and events, and by the way, our city is 617 years this year, and these events have historical value, and they also prove that based on this heritage, we must think of our future, because in these difficult times we have to think of our future and think strategically. I know that tomorrow's sessions will be in the City Council, and I'm wanting you. Glory to Ukraine.
пане Юрію, ви не будете ображати.
Mr. Yuriy, I want to say as a historian that it's 617 years since the first written note. The city has a much older tradition. I want to say thank you and go to our next guest. And I have presented the head of the Pan-European movement, and I want to present the new rector of our alma mater, Ruslan Beloskursky, whose support helps our scientific library to develop. And I've spent 6 years of my life working here, and I want to say thank you and pass you the floor. Good afternoon, our honored members of Pan-European Conference. I want to congratulate all our international members who, regardless of all challenges of war in Ukraine, are present here today and are in unity with us. Our university finds a lot of symbols in having the conference here in the walls of Chernivtsi National University, named after Yuriy Fedkovych, and in the walls of the scientific library. The first reason for that is that our university is 150 years since its foundation, and we're celebrating it now. The second The scientific library has even an older tradition and is older than our university, because and that's why this building with the books that are modern and old from the past century, they prove that this is the place where knowledge is passed. And the most important, to my opinion, which resonates with the Pan-European Union idea as an organization that unites the Europe and emphasizes that Europe must be united, united and strong, and the power of Europe is in diversity. The Chernivtsi National University in Chernivtsi is a place that doesn't matter what is your nationality, who you vote for, and which faculty have you chosen to study or work. It's the only important thing is academic freedom and the desire to study, and it's important that the university unites people. I wish all the members of today's conference to have a fruitful conversation and discussion, professional answers on the challenges that we have today, and consciousness that only subjectivity and action of the united Europe will provide peaceful future for our continent and the whole world. Thank you, Mr. Rector. I don't know it's a surprise for you or not, but the thing is that I've mentioned it today. We want to rebuild the work of the Pan-European Union in Ukraine. We have talked to our international partners that we want to reconstruct it, and we want to meet some particular things. And to demonstrate these things, we'll show the thing that will happen right now. I want to invite my two friends, the professor from the historical and Reinhard Kluchik. They will sign a treaty for cooperation between Pan-Europe Austria and the historical faculty of the Chernivtsi National University. Mr. Professor has corrected Mr. Lesyuk that the Faculty of History and Politology and International Affairs. So, dear colleagues, please understand me right. So we are cooperating for a long time, and it's only the beginning, and I hope that signing this treaty is only the beginning. And there are many faculties representatives here, the dean of the other faculty who will sign the same treaty. This is a treaty of what we have done already and what we'll do in the future. So please kindly let's fix that officially. So please give us a pen.
Дякую.
Thank you. Thank you. We are not fitting in the timing right now, but I am pleased to give the floor to the head of the Youth Pan-Europe in Ukraine, my student, one of my best students, to Miss Anastasia Hatsenko, who will moderate the next event. I always emphasize that, and it will be showed on the screen, that Kudin Khodin Alarik, when he was founding the Pan-European movement, and the book that he has released later, he has written that. So you can see that writing below. So it's dedicated to the youth of Europe. And it's dedicated to all the youth of Ukraine and Europe. Thank you. Dear guests and colleagues, I'm pleased to congratulate you here today, and I'm pleased to moderate this presentation, because this presentation is of our new wing, the youth wing, the Youth Pan-European of Bukovina and Chernivtsi. And the Pan-European Youth of Ukraine was founded in 2020. We have a youth forum organized and a series of events that is related to their experience of integrating to Europe, and that is very important to us. All our activity is related to becoming the modern present day and building it today, building the agenda. And we're celebrating our anniversary here, 5 years since our foundation, and the Pan-European Youth of Germany is celebrating 50 years. So we invited Isabella Ritter-Schuster to give us a warm word. We want to congratulate the Pan-European Youth of Germany with this anniversary. So please, Isabella, take the floor.
Good morning to everyone. I'm unfortunately cannot be with you because I had a little car accident yesterday, and it would be great to be with you because, as you know, my parents are from Romania. My father is from Maramureș, which is directly to the border to the Ukraine. And yeah, what should I say? This year in Germany, we are celebrating 50 years of the Pan-European Youth. And yeah, I'm looking forward to celebrate with you, Anastasia, the 50th Jubilee of the Pan-European Youth in Ukraine as a part of the European Union in about 45 years. So we are looking forward for that. And I also want to send greetings from Joséphine Staron, the Pan-European Youth President of France, with whom I made the initiative to rebuild the International Pan-European Youth Network. And yes, as I said to you, Anastasia, and also to you, thank you very much for your effort as the youth in Ukraine. You were the first after the war began to make donations, to help the people. And I can remember a few days after the war began, we had a meeting in Berlin, my Pan-European Youth, with Ihor, which I also greet here, and Irina, who explained us the situation, how it's going on, etc., etc. And it's very heart warming for me to see you all healthy in this difficult times in Ukraine. I wish you all the best, and if you need my support, you know where you can find me. And now I wish you all the best, and yeah, Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Thank you, Isabella, for and also, of course, for standing with Ukraine. Я передаю слово Дарії Біляєвій.
I'm giving the floor to Daria Belaeva, who is our new head of the youth department in Bukovina. Thank you, Anastasia. Hello to everyone. I'm very pleased to see everyone here today. So it's a big honor for me to stand before you today and to represent the new Pan-European Youth Movement of Bukovina, a new branch of Pan-European movement in Ukraine. The Pan-European movement has a deep historical meaning in building the European unity. I want to continue this mission today through youth diplomacy. So I want to pay your attention to this slide, like Igor Volodymyrych has pointed out. You can see that it's written dedicated to the youth of Ukraine here, to the youth of Europe. And these are the words of Richard von Coudenhove, It was written in 1923, so they are very symbolic today. They found the person who has made this movement was believing that it will fight the all discrepancies and build a new foundation for the united Europe. So I want to present this to you today, our new youth department. I want to represent our team. So there are 3 people in our team right now, and I hope our team will grow in the future and we will have more members in our organization. So just a short presentation. I want to invite my dear colleague here, Alina. So my name is Daria, I'm 20 years old and I am from Bucha, which is in Kiev region. So I'm studying on the faculty of International Affairs and History in the Chernivtsi National University. And I've learned about the pan-European movement in Ukraine after participating in a project in the Kiev organization, where under the mentorship of our Ukrainian diplomat, I had a chance to present my own project, and my project apply that was according to the European standards. And since I was active there, I was invited to join the Kiev youth, and now I am standing here as the founder of the youth movement of Bukovina. So I pass the floor to my colleague. Hello everyone, I'm very grateful to be here with you today, to be a member of this important event for Chernivtsi and the pan-European movement. Regarding my personal experience, I never felt bad about choosing this path, even though my path was quite chaotic. We had a conference in Chernivtsi and we were participating there last year, and I was really impressed. So shortly I have joined the Kiev youth, and now I'm standing here in front of you as a member of something new that was created in Chernivtsi in the context of Pan-European Union. And I'm from Pokrovsk, from Donetsk region, and after moving to Chernivtsi, I was hesitating about what my life will look like here, and now seeing so many opportunities here, I want just to say thank you to all of you, and I promise that we will work hard and fruitfully, and I know that everything will be all right. Thank you. So thank you. Now we'll look into details of our purpose and our vision of our organization. As was pointed out earlier, we had only one organization, youth organization in Kiev, and we are pleased to announce the creation of a new one in Chernivtsi. So the purpose of everything we do is integrating Ukrainian youth into the European dialogue and having a partnership with the pan-European movement. We want to build an environment where young Ukrainians can learn about Europe and become active participants in its transformation. One of our priorities is building a stronger position of Ukraine that is standing on the front lines for dignity and freedom, and what is more important, for European values. So on this slide you can see our vision and mission. We believe that Ukrainian youth is a member of the United Europe. And the Europe for us is not only an institution and borders, it's about unity in principles, unity in democracy and solidarity and the power of law and European values. We also thrive to implement these principles not only as milestones but as in practice. It's not working for some reason, sorry. Okay, all right. So here you can see the main directions of our work. I want to dive into details of each one of them. The first one is education and culture, and the events that we have within our environment. We plan to have lessons and seminars that are dedicated to human rights and the challenges of the continent today. Our target is make Europe more accessible. The next point is international partnership and youth diplomacy. We're open to partnership with other departments of pan-European movement organizations. We want to become partners with other organizations, and we want to implement sustainable relationships with all of them through conferences and exchanges. They will allow us to build a new network of European leaders that think in new categories and see Ukraine as a new partner in building the new policy of peace in Europe. So the next slide. I'm sorry. Okay. We pay special attention to regional partnership and to the triangle of Ukraine, Romania and Moldova. This space has a shared heritage and it's important for the Eastern Europe's stability. We plan to start many initiatives and youth projects that will facilitate the cross-border exchange and sharing of experience and popularizing of European values. All right, now I see how this works. Okay, so advocacy. We want to make the institutional space of Europe more stronger. We want to build partnerships with different organizations and implement European standards to all our sectors of life. And last but not least, is volunteering and social projects. We want to make initiatives that will develop the communities. These projects will allow our youth to join important projects and feel the European principles of cooperation in practice. And the most exciting thing for me is that starting from now, our youth organization, our youth department of Pan-European Unit Movement in Chernivtsi has started its work. And we are looking for young people that see themselves as a member of the Pan-European movement. So by scanning this QR code, you can go to the registration form and become a member of our organization. And I'm sure that the future of United Europe depends on the generation that can combine the state dignity and responsibility. So that's the generation we want to create here in Chernivtsi. If you see yourself a member of Pan-European movement, so kindly join. I'm speaking to the youth that is present here now. We would be happy to see you with us. Thank you for your attention.
So pay attention to the symbol. So the Bucha, yes, Pokrovsk. Pokrov, I have got my fellow militaries here. I'm happy to see my head of the unit, Vadim Fashchenko, the participant of the Kiev defense of the Bakhmut and Robotyne. You understand this symbolism, and we are quite thankful to this hospitable Bukovinian land that it has greeted its people, and they could feel themselves Ukrainians but not internally displaced people. It's extremely important. We are working further, and we are going to our further panel. I would like to invite the workers here. So thanks, Natalia. Dear participants, dear guests, I'm really happy to greet you here on our next discussion, the discussion that is related to the actual problems of the current fight. We talk about the satellites and the alliance of dictatorship, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and their satellites. And I'm really against Europe, international law, and our open societies. I really would like to invite to the panel discussion Mrs. Walburga Habsburg-Douglas, the Vice President of the International Pan-European Movement, the Department of the Austria in 2006 and 2010, of the Swedish Parliament in 2006 and 2010. Mrs. Svetlana Kravotska, who is Professor and Doctor of Laws, Acting Head of the Department of the International Law of the Chernivtsi National University. Mrs. Svetlana, please. Reinhard Kluczek, who is the President of the Pan-European Union of Austria. Yaroslav Yurchyshin, who is a Member of Parliament of Ukraine. And Pavlo Zhonyrenko, who is PhD Chairman of the Board of the Center of the Strategic Studies, Advisor of the Secretary on the National Security and Defense of Council of Ukraine. Can I sit somewhere aside, maybe? Yes, exactly here, maybe. Yeah, okay. So I could see everyone. It would be quite not the best option for me to sit, so maybe it would be better. So dear colleagues, our discussion for sure is focused on such a really up-to-date topic, because currently we're in the conditions when we really understand what's going on inside the European Union. We pay a great attention to those disagreements that is happening inside the European community. We work a lot and coordinate our desire in the fight against the aggressor, but we see that the aggressor is not standing aside, but he is quite adaptive into this work. For the last time, we see that strengthening of the interconnection within dictator states, and right now we really would like to see what we know about these dictatorships and how we could evaluate them, and how we see the future of our victory and the fight against its dictatorships. And my first question is related to all of you. I don't have the addressed questions. It's a question to all of you here on the panel, and I really hope they're going to be the people who really desire to answer this question. It's about the forming and current cooperation of this dictatorship alliance. So dictatorship alliance, is it associative union, or is it a new union of evil on the beginning of that has taken place of the previous century? Is it like currently for today, for a short time, or is it related to the strategic aims and its future vision of this dictatorship related to the future order of the world? Who wants to start maybe commenting on that one? I'm sorry, because I'm just speaking too fast sometimes. I'm sorry for that. Yes, please. Good afternoon. So first of all, I really would like to thank the organizers of the Pan-European movement for raising these important issues and topics, and readiness to speak on those things that unfortunately in Europe are omitted because Europe is afraid of it. And I would like partially today I came to Chernivtsi after my work at the Basque country, where we had the International Forum of the Open Government, and the whole world is talking about the democracy fall. But the next question that must occur, what should we do to defend it? Unfortunately, nobody describes it. To be honest, the unison of totalitarian states on the level of the meaning and the narratives, it's basically a fact. It's quite proved, and that's physically, we have the Iranian drones in the sky, and the North Korean soldiers are fighting on the front lines, the China supporting Russia with technologies. It is just the first line of all the challenges we are facing, because the main role in current case of the China is the creation of the alternative vision of the reality that is in the Western world. The Western world, vice versa, loses its vision, because even in such powerful part of the Western world, the United States, what previously was not asked, I mean, democratical values, currently they are under the consideration, and the country that has formed its own narrative, its own vision of the world, has set aside to this process and tries to react and not to propose the future. What is the most dangerous for now is this evil union and quite more technological adaptive. This has investment into investment into artificial intelligence, into the social network, into everything that can guarantee that its picture of the world could be dominating, or at least competing. To be honest, it forms a potential issue, So we, most of the time after the Second World War, mostly because of such informal or active movements such as pan-European movement, we have had a vision of the world that is agreeing as interests without using the war as an element of the influence. Currently, this agenda is being destroyed. The Western world that has adapted this world in the best way, the economy instead of war, is not such active, and honestly for such a long has lived in the silence, and it tries to take the moment far away from the moment when they should start this fight. I don't talk only about the physical fight, but I mean the highest level of the fight is the conflicts on the level of the understanding. We have got Dmytro Zolotukhin here. I think he could describe it in more details later on from the understanding tool. But why every time we are shocked with that Europe, the Western world in total, is not so helping the Ukraine so much? Because why they went this wrong path? They say that they will help us to stand but not to win. And this is because this conflict of vision, what instead? In the vision of the world of the post-Second World War II, Russia is a big player, is a balance. In the vision of our future, the Russia, we must sincerely, it shouldn't exist in our surrounding, I must say. At least in the vision it is right now, because the way it looks like right now, the centralization is, it's not the issue only for us. Of course, we are the first to face that, but to the Europe in total. So finalizing the unition of the totalitarianisms and authoritarian states, it has happened. They propose quite simple option of the leadership, of the clarity, of the sustainability, and the responsibility of the government for everything apart from democracy, which is hesitating right now. The readiness instead of the hesitation, the attack instead of defense. So for us, it's quite important to rethink our unity, because democracy, if it's an example of World War II, of course, it only wins when it is united. Thank you. I saw that Mr. Reinhardt wants to continue, so please.
Yeah, thank you. I was educated in a Catholic family. Being educated in a Catholic family means that I learned from my childhood on that evil exists. And why do I say that? Because it's so important to know that it exists. It does not disappear from this world, because we in the West You lived, or many of you, at least the older one, in the Soviet time, which was also an evil empire, as Ronald Reagan said. But we in the West were living in the illusion that now we were, especially after the end of the Soviet Union, now we were overcoming all these evil empires, etc., and the eternal peace will happen, and freedom and democracy will spread all over the world. The End of History was the title of a very famous book. But this was an illusion. And the point is that, especially in this Western world, still there are many people who do not realize that these acts of the evil exists, although they are very honest, telling us what their idea is. Putin is honest. He says that I want to re-establish the Soviet Union. What does that mean? I mean, everybody knows. China clearly declares that they have a completely other vision of human rights, which has nothing to do with human rights. And the point is that we have to realize, especially in the Western European countries, but also in the other part of the Western world, that freedom and democracy is not existing automatically. The fight for freedom is an eternal fight. We had the name of the founder of the Pan-European Union here, Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi, who once said that what makes Europe, it's liberty, it's freedom, but we have to fight for it, all during our life, because there is always somebody who is challenging it. Our problem, I quoted Ronald Reagan with the acts of the empire of the evil when he spoke of this, about the Soviet Union. Now we have, and this is a big problem for the Western world, a leader in the United States who says Putin is his best friend. And the same with the dictator or the tyrann in China or in North Korea. Yeah? So there was a shift in the understanding of what freedom and democracy means. And therefore I'm so thankful that we discussed that here, because all the things that are said here have also to go into the Western world for a better understanding what it really means to fight for this freedom and democracy. We have it, you are defending it, but we will lose it if you are not defending it, and if we join you in this fight.
Thank you very much. Дякую.
I know that this topic that has highlighted in the main of the panel discussion, of course, it has encouraged our participants to the discussion, such important topics that we want to voice to everyone. Mr. Polo, please. Up to 10 minutes you have, so please. I think up to 10 minutes is fine. Yeah, we will have many questions to discuss afterwards, so yes. Thank you to the organizers, it's quite important topic here. And the first thing I really would like to thank to those who I want to thank far away from in the past. This to the professors and the leaders of the Chernivtsi National University. It happens that I have been to Chernivtsi around 30 years ago, but I always, when I meet the representatives of the Chernivtsi National University, I can't say how it connected, but I always feel it's like, I know, some miracle for me, but I haven't faced with a person who was of the middle quality, let's say like this. What all they have is the basic knowledge, I mean, on the international law, on the international policy, on the international relationships, international conflicts, the basic knowledge and the creativity in using this basic knowledge to solve some specific problems that is discussed currently on any conference we have. This is a miracle for me. Maybe this is because of school, for sure. Maybe it is because of the atmosphere. I'm not sure, but I'm really thank you to all people who has settled this university, and those live who make the name for its university, and those who are not born yet who will enter this university, and I think they're gonna make a big decision, a great decision. Thank you for that. And now what relates the main topic. what relates our group of four, let's say like this. I banned. Who is fifth? So Russia, Iran, North Korea, and Belarus. Belarus is Russia, basically. So for me, it is one country. It's just like one state for me. So first problem is that the dictators and those leaders who are the heads of these countries, they have a big advantage against the democracy, just a practical advantage. I'm engineer, so I talk like as engineer in these terms. They don't have to negotiate, they don't have to receive some tips, they don't have the voting consensus terms, and it's quite important that they do not think on that they're gonna be chosen and revoted on the next elections. They can plan, and it's we must be happy that we could analyze and we could prognose their activity aside from the democracy. Who could think a few years ago that the country that has supported us the most once will become, not from the other side, but will become the one who cannot be trusted in this fight? That's why we must understand this reality, this real situation, when political leaders in the democratic countries, they always change, but these countries, these authoritarian countries, they have them all the time. They have the same leaders all the time. What is the problem? The problem is that Russia is not afraid of Europe, but Europe is afraid of Russia. And Russia knows it. Russia knows it, and it always provokes Europe to just agree this fear. And the problem is that we have got the UN, which is kind of that, the United Organization that has occurred after the horrible war, and everyone understood that we will put it to the end. We had a negative experience of League of Nations, but we have made some summaries, and we will create the organization that will stop the war. But if war occurs, they're gonna stop it really fast. So the practice has shown that it is false, because all the countries thought that everyone wants to see peace. Everyone likes peace. There were dictatorships in the world, and everyone did nothing on that. But some of them were like eating its competitors eating the meat from the fridge. Yeah, and Putin is part of the United Nations, who was against all the solutions who could stop his aggression. And one of the solutions is possible to think about specific steps, but one of the possible solutions is for now to create the organizations of the free nations. The dictators are united, and the democratic representatives must be united as well with time. But the freedom of Europe, the power of Europe is in the unition. We have created a united Europe. That's why I see that organization, maybe which is not organization, maybe it's better to be an alliance of democratic countries, where we could see only democratic states and only those countries who want to become a democratic countries, where there won't be a council of the security. There will be no veto, where everyone is equal, when there is a minimal structure of the secretary. But the most important is which suits the fifth state of NATO. So if one is attacked, then everyone is attacked. I want to explain that we should have some automatic level of actions, and afterwards there is a possibility to have, it's of course a discussion, should be done through discussion, but we can't keep the situation as it is right now, when the organization which was created in 1945 cannot be reformed by others even by stopping the funding, which United States has done many times. The organization which has no committee shortened, even the main organ of the United Nations, the Council of Care. There is no states which are carried, but such organ exists. There is a management, there is a secretary, there is management. It's quite interesting, the last decisions that it has made. It was before the last Nauru, I think, country has become independent. This council has collected at that times, and only then when and where they think it is important. All these times it has existed. We should do something, and we should think on how to change exactly the international law. Exactly to divide the international law, to give, not to let it die. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walburga, maybe you're ready to comment?
I think the very important thing is that an organization like ours, the Pan-European Union, can be a strong power against the axis of evil, because we fight for values. And I think this is the really important thing. I mean, others who say they are European organizations fight for institutions. We fight for values. And I think this is a very important thing. And I mean, right now we feel that there is very much strength coming from the countries of the Eastern Partnership. And therefore, I'm so glad that our friends from the Pan-European Unions of Armenia and Georgia are here present, because they are the ones who understand what the idea and the power behind the European partnership is. And the other thing is, I think it's important that we, the international participants, come here, because you must feel that you have a support all over Pan-Europe, and you are not alone, because you are fighting for our values. And I mean, I came yesterday from Rome, and I must say it was very impressive. Reinhard started by saying he comes from a Catholic family. I also come from a Catholic family, and we were at the big general audience on Wednesday when the Pope called upon all the representatives of the religious orders to pray for peace, to pray the rosary for peace. And I must say, this is a thing that we all must take to our hearts, because this is one of the big things that we have, that the axis of evil does not have, because we believe in something. We believe in peace, we believe in democracy, we believe in values. And this is why the Pan-European Union has got the cross in the middle, to remind us all what really is the importance of Europe, the ideas behind everything. And I think I'm so glad when Igor asked me on which panel I wanted to be. I said I want to speak about the axis of evil, because for once I can say what I want to say. Because you see, this is one thing also which is important for us Pan-Europeans. We dare to speak out loud about things. And I mean, I was just 2 weeks ago an election observer in Moldova, and I know the election in Moldova fortunately went very well. And I think this is one of the important things when you are an election observer, because you know, once you are in the polling station, they are not cheating at you. I mean, whether you have hindered 0.1% or 99% of cheating, it's important that we try to I speak English, I don't need the English of what I'm saying, yes. And I think that's a very, very important thing for all of us, that we try to fight for democracy. And it's ridiculous to say election observation is a fight for democracy, but in a certain aspect it is. And the good thing was, when I was there and meeting all the friends from the different countries, I was thinking back a couple of years, where a couple of years ago, it would not have been the same participation. And I think there we really can get a very strong and good push drive to towards Europe. And I mean, Moldova is a very important country in the Eastern Partnership. So we really have to do what we can for this country. And therefore, I'm very glad that the Pan-European Youth of Bukovina says they want to work for the triangle Ukraine, Romania, Moldova. I think this is extremely important, and that shows that the Pan-European Youth of Bukovina really understands the Pan-European message. And I want to thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much. І у нас
So in our speeches and in our question, we have spoken about international law. So Ms. Svetlana Kharvatska has made a small presentation of her key thesis. So Ms. Svetlana, please take the floor. Good afternoon, honored guests and colleagues and organizers. So there is a trend today to make remarks and notices. So I want to say a remark today. I've heard today the international law is dying. Yes, I want to say that it's not true. It's not dying. It will not die. It was always strong and massive tool to provide peace, and it will continue to be just like that. Even if it will have to reload and become stronger and gain more power, it will prove its power to the whole world as a system that is dedicated to providing peace in the whole world. The titanic effort from international law experts in the world and Ukraine and students that study on the international law faculty of the Chernivtsi National University that founded the Pan-European Youth Wing, they will all support me and say that international law is a strong tool and will show itself in the future. I have a small presentation that will fit the time frame, and as Ms. Moderator says, I will join the discussion after each speech of each member of today's panel. I'm looking for that. It's all right. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you for the opportunity to take part in such an important forum, especially in the context of the 150th anniversary of our alma mater, Chernivtsi Yuriy Fedkovych National University. My heartfelt gratitude goes first and foremost to the initiators of the event, Pan-Europa Austria, Pan-European Unions, and guests. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to the President of the Pan-Europa Ukraine for the invitation. Igor Zhaloba is my classmate and the university administrator, especially rector of our university, Roman Beloskursky. I also extend my warm greetings to my colleagues on the panel discussion. My pleasure. My topic, my speech, names Dictatorship Alliance versus Europe, International Law and Open Society. An analysis of the legal challenges posed by the Russia, China, Iran, and non-Korea ACEs. Legal, next slide, please. Legal assault on the international order. The coalition of autocratic regimes systematically attacks the foundation principles of the legal framework, creating unprecedented instability. Few points of the topic of the slide. The first, violation of sovereignty, Russia's invasions of Ukraine. A blatant violation of territorial sovereignty and the prohibition of force under United Charter. Hybrid legal warfare, use of hybrid factors, including disformation and state-sponsored cyber attacks aimed at eroding the legal norms that protect open societies and democratic processes. Next point, disregard for norms. Coordinated disregard of international humanitarian law and human rights norms leading to widespread authority and mass displacement. Next point, impunity shield. Autocratic regimes actively exploit weakness and gaps in the enforcement mechanism of international law to shield their leaders from accountability. And next very important point you can see on the next slide, jurisdictional hurdles and accountability gaps. The structure of international criminal justice is being tested by the challenge of prosecuting cross-border crimes committed or supported by non-state parties in the international criminal cause. First point, international criminal cause evasion tactic. Key autocratic actors, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, refused to ratify the Rome Statute, severely limiting the international criminal court's direct jurisdiction over the actions. Next point, the Lithuania-Belarus precedent. Lithuania is innovated in 2024 in International Criminal Court, referral focused on the cross-border crimes from Belarus established a potentially new path to accountability based on the victim's state sovereignty. Transboundary legal treaty. This alliance with the ICC's Bangladesh-Myanmar case, which confirms the crimes initiated in all non-state party territory, but having effects in a state party territory, can trigger jurisdiction. Exploit limits. The autocratic alliances rely in these jurisdictional limits to coordinate their actions while systematically evading international legal consequences. Next slide, please. Rule of law erosion and strategic corruption. Behind military aggression, the alliance undermines democratic stability through the systematic capture of legal institutions and the export of illicit financial influence. Three important points on the slide you can see. Judicial capture. Autocracy systematically enters power by naturalizing judicial independence, repressing opposition, and eliminating essential checks and balances. Exporting kleptocracy. The export of strategic corruption, including money laundering and illicit financial flows. Weakness democratic institution of government structures in Europe and behind. And next point, testing Western frameworks. Illicit financial flows from these regimes challenge Western legal and financial transparency standards, demanding robust countermeasures. And next slide, please. Unholding legal order. Main way forward. As a Ukrainian legal professional, the defense of international law is not academic challenge, it's not academic issue, it is existential issue. We must proactively strengthen legal defense against authoritarian aggression. Main ways for this texts. Strengthen legal mechanism, close jurisdictional gaps by expanding the reach of international courts. For example, International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, and effectively utilizing universal jurisdiction in the national courts. First ways, prosecute authoritarian crimes, support transnational investigative teams, and dedicated prosecutorial effort to build strong cases against perspectives of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Next, exchange legal resilience. protect judicial independence, ensure media freedom, and rigorously counter digital authoritarianism and influence operation with democratic states. And final ways, frontline legal activism, recognize and support Ukrainian legal scholarship and activism and key contributors and frontline defenders of international law and democratic values. And as last slide, rule of law is the shield of freedom. Defending it is our collective duty. Останній слайд, він не переключився, але...
The last slide has not showed, please, but the key thesis of my presentation is that the rule of law and the power of international law, the unity of Europe and Ukraine is the shield of freedom. And it's our work, common work we have to do. I'd like to highlight the last moment. So the international law has a strong power. I want to provide you with an example. On my lections in the faculty, on every year I speak to the students who are skeptic about some vulnerabilities of international law. In today's context, there is an unprecedented case in the international court about Gambia against Myanmar. So Gambia is a tiny country in the west of Africa, majorly Muslim, and Myanmar, former Burma, is a country in Asia with a lot of power and prosperity, but they are a dictatorship. So the unprecedented case is that they ask me, Svetlana Bogdanivna, how a country so small like Gambia in Africa has applied to the international UN court against a major country in Asia, Myanmar. So what's the conflict between them? What territory conflicts that might have? How they apply if they are on different continents, small Gambia and the great Gambia. So the unprecedented decision of the International Court was that the court has confirmed that Myanmar is guilty in the genocide of Rohingya tribe genocide, and Gambia has applied to protect those citizens, those Muslim community in Myanmar. And this unprecedented case proves that there is international law and it's strong. And a small country that no one might have ever heard about before, that might apply to the biggest international institute of international jurisdiction, has applied and won and protected its people. So we will believe in international law power and support its efforts. So everything on a huge worldwide scale will be right, because the main rule of international law is justice. And it's international justice, not justice between just countries, because the people are always for justice, and it will always be a strong power. So thank you. It is hard not to agree that international law is the basis for international world order and for the freedom which we are protecting now, and our soldiers are dying for it. We'll return to it in the future, to the question of international law, but I'd like to add a few words about the allianceship of dictators. So the war for existence that we're having here today, so put simply, it's either us or them. So we have our victory does not depend only on our unity. I'd like to be more cynic and consider what can happen if that alliance of dictatorship will become stronger. So my question to you is, what unites Tehran and Moscow? Moscow and Peking, what contradictions they have and what unites them? How can we use that contradictions, and what policy Europe what policy Europe has to use against those dictatorship. I think we must weaken them, but what has Ukraine to do? Do we have to have diplomacy relationship with Iran, or do we have to break that? So
First, a remark to what was said before in the presentation, because you mentioned one topic which is, I think, very, very, very important. You called it strategic corruption. There is corruption, but also strategy. In the Western world, we developed the welfare state. And the welfare state is weak, because the welfare state, as Lamb once wrote, does not need politicians, statesmen, it needs accountants. So there is no strategy behind politics, but distributing welfare. And on the other side, there is a strategy, and this strategy comes with corruption, which is, in that case, welfare for the Western world. That starts with a nuclear power plant in Hungary, goes via Gazprom, and even into culture. Yeah? Sponsoring of Salzburger Festspiele and other festivals all over the world. And with that, the strategy is again more and more weakening the Western societies. This is, I think, a very, very important point. Russia and Tehran, they are allies, but they are different. I think we have to be honest on that. What unites them at the moment is their fight against the West. They have a completely other idea of society. In Iran, in Persia, I mean, it's an old empire, really an empire in the positive meaning of the word, because it has a long history. Russia does not have a history. Sorry for saying that for the Russians, but it's just a fact. Yeah? The point was that Iran has for a long time been a partner for the West. To think back to the time of the Shah, and then this revolution came. Yeah, of course, this was against democracy, because it's a theocracy, wie sagt man das auf Englisch? Theocracy, however, you know what I mean, difficult word, which has nothing to do with democracy. But it has, all in all, it's completely different from the ideology which is behind the Russian imperialism, in the bad meaning of this word. And therefore, I think it has to be, or the West needs a strategy to divide those two powers, and this can only happen by giving more respect to the tradition of Persia, of Iran, of course also by supporting those who are in a democratic way working there for the end of this regime of the mullahs, but we should not put that into the same whatever it is. It's not the same topic. The same with China. China and Russia also. I mean, China is interested in having Russia as the source for raw materials. Let's be honest. Yeah? And I would also say that on the long run, Russia will not lose that war in the meaning that it's defeated. Well, I also hope that it's losing the war on the battlefield, but when we talk about China, it's losing the war because China will take over the resources from Russia.
Thank you very much.
Yes, there is a plain answer that makes us different from the evil axis. They do not believe in international law. They just cancel it and ignore. So I will say a simple joke about a Russian soldier that has drinking and having fun all his life and playing and gambling, and he has never made money. So after the war started and he got to Britain, he met his friend that he is rich and wealthy, and he said, "What have you done so you became so wealthy?" And that guy said that, "Yes, I'm gambling too, I'm drinking and having fun." And he says, "I'm just playing cards with gentlemen, and I understood that they are. I understood that they are not trying to trick me. So what I wanted to say is that I am working with the facility of prisoners of war, and the states and people are interested in peace, and if something is done, a mistake is done, they release the civil people. And Russia is killing civilians right now. So Victoria Roshina, who was 27 years old, she was a journalist, and she went to Berdyansk to show what is happening here, and she died there. She was murdered. So international law works only within those countries that are accepting it. So there are cases when an African country is applying against a country in Asia. So as far as I know, Asia has not fulfilled that decision of the international law that was taken. And if dictatorship are following the international law only if they are under pressure. If international law has a tool of effective employment of power. And I thank you about the strategic corruption slide, because one of the elements of fighting dictatorships is leaving them without the economic foundation, because their economic foundation is in the West, in the developed countries, where they can make money. They cannot make money in poor regions. They can only get resources from there and people and everything they need, but the money are here in Europe, in the United States. So when the president of the United States is finding common language with Russian mafia easier because they have built assets according to their interests, we understand that international law, to explain international law to a person that says that UN has given them only a broken elevator, it's quite naive. So we have to, it's critical to develop the international law, and we've got to be proactive about all that process. Currently, the Red Cross is asking us, can you initiate on the international platforms based on your experience, because they will listen to you, you have examples of sufferings, so we can develop a protocol on civilians, and we have a framework on how to work. Every exchange of prisoners of war are beyond the international law, so we would have to exchange all the prisoners when the war will end, if we were acting according to international law. And when you play cards with a person that tries to trick you, like Russia and China, they see weakness in the rules. They think that only one side must follow the rules, so that that vertical is clear. And if someone is not doing that, they change the rules. When we from our side and international side were telling Russia about international law, they said that their national law is over international law. So that's an important point. Without international law, we could not fight, but we must be very proactive, and something that has worked after World War II cannot be effective now under current World War III or the first war of information, and we are in that state right now. The world, like in the 36, 1937 and 1939 even, they were living a paradigm that the war is will not affect them, so if they do Anschluss, so that it doesn't matter to anyone, so we will give just our small pieces of territory and we will be good. And it will not work, because international law has to be offensive, it has to be strong, and it must give tools to the democracy and make them more powerful. So we are working very hard to get those sanctions, and that's absurd. They are making money on blood. I really like our partners from Norway, and they said that they can give us 4 times more more help to you without any damage to our economy. Because after blocking Russian oil, who has made money? It's clear who has made money. So international law can make responsible those that are making money from war to invest more to stop this war faster. And whether we are speaking of that, I believe, with all due respect to international law, I am a fan of international law, because without it we would be in a very hard situation. But we have to not be really focused on it, because it's not working sometimes. We are the only people who can offer an alternative. We can change it through the tools that we have discussed today, but we have to change it for sure. And if they respect the power, the rule of power, and we respect the rule of law, the rule of law has to give us more power so we can use it to make pressure on the aggressor. I see that Miss Svetlana wants to give a comment, so Mr. Pavlo, can she give her comment and then you will continue? She wants to react regarding the international law. So, dear guests, we all understand that the Bible and Quran and other holy documents, they are a system of rules, and if they're not followed, not the Bible is guilty, but those who are not following those rules. And international law is a system of laws that is not based on dictatorship and power or on a certain hierarchy of norms, but on an agreement and on the will of the countries. So those who are guilty on violating international law, it's in a certain way a Bible for the countries, and the countries that are violating international law are guilty. And it's not that simple that there are just guilty and unguilty people. The Rome Statute that speaks about countries of three groups that has signed and followed the law, the countries that signed and hadn't followed the rule, and the third group that had either signed and revoked their sign or did not even think of signing and following that rule. So considering these three groups, who is guilty? The countries that are having an uncertain policy and an injustice, cynic and violating the international law, or so international law is a system of perfect rules. As my colleague has said, they're not always effective, but it was created as a system of agreements between countries. So any convention is, the country can join it or revoke it, and the international law respects, and it's built on respect and help. So sanctions as a part of international law does not have its power that we desire. It's not the fault of international law, it's the fault of the countries that are using that agreement as an agreement, not an imperative. So they are guilty for violating and not following that. So Mr. Pavlo, please have your word.
So do you hear me? Yes, okay, wonderful. So regarding the international law, I want to explain my point of view. I think maybe someone, if you won't like it, and it won't suit everyone. But international law, from my point of view, has grown quite more since last times. And if right now it's not follows a proper function, but it could be followed only by the notes, there are some restrictions of international law. Somebody is not following it. So for example, you're not following the international law, and the person continues doing this, killing the people, throwing the planes, the drones, and what is called their name, just like torturing the people. But you say you're against the laws, and in the society, if we talk about the norms, we have got two parallel systems of law. One is for the proper citizens who follow the legislative norms, and others ones that overcome the border, who have absolutely different rights. For example, if you are in the prison, yes, you could have absolutely different rights. If you have stolen something from others, you won't tell to the police officer, why you touching me. I have the right of omitting it. I can go wherever I want, etc. So what I mean, it is, we should have the same on the international law as well, international norms as well. So I mean, like with the client, we should speak on the language of the client, as psychologists say. If some country is not following the state of the international norms, like that they have followed, they have agreed to follow, the person shouldn't follow the privileges of the international law. Key to it, the beginning of it, it is the International Vienna Conference of the Agreements, where the 61st state, it is mentioned that if you are overcoming the one-way agreement, or is a multi-way agreement, so it is a possibility for other side and not to follow the norms of this agreement. That's why discussing the what is international law, and we must follow it at the same time while others do not follow it. So in this understanding, we should not like agree on this. But international law is quite wide, it's quite flexible. So what I mean, like what makes what an obstacle if the procedure of the International Criminal Court is quite long, even when now we have got the order for the arresting of Putin by the International Criminal Court, and we see what we have right now. And we understand that all these dictators, they're connected with one more side, except for the hate of the international laws. They're just fighting for their lives. They understand that if Russia loses and they lose, then that's all. That they're gonna be in a big gap, in a big hole. That's why they're trying to catch. They don't have other way out. They just have to win. But we, at the same time, we don't have other way out. We have just to win. The question is how to do that, how to divide them. But they will be divided really fast when the main initiator gonna be gonna lose. So when we see the situation within the Ukraine and Russia, if the situation will keep existing, we really require Ukraine win this. But at the same time, we have the Russia not to win, yes, and afterwards, if it is followed, we will have the continuation of this war, the kills, the deaths, and if the West understands and will see that it is their war as well, it's not only our war. When previously Putin didn't call the war, yes, so he said like on the Donbass it was other names, on the eastern part of Ukraine the conflict, but now when they see drones on their territory, even in Russia, our rockets and our drones bomb Russia, what is that? Ukrainian conflict? I don't think so. So when they understand that this is our war, then they will have a different understanding. The Western part should mobilize, well, how it was during the World War II, but unfortunately this mobilization during this period, in the US, the mobilization has happened after the Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December in 1941. I don't want anything to happen in Europe like this, but I'm sorry, but Putin will soon make Europe understand that the Europe is fighting against him, against Putin and against all these dictators. Yes, Iran had democracy. It had democracy, but we remember how Europe, the times using declaring the freedom, the democracy, the love to all people under this, they have like kept like a snake in the pocket, like I'd say, because he was like improving the change of the government, and the democratic Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who was fine not only for the West but we mean for the whole world. He was just like he just felt, and we see what's going on right now in Iran. I want to repeat once more that we must talk to the clients in the language of the clients, and if the procedure is lasting and not productive, we have got another procedure to confirm, after everything that happens in Ukraine day after day, we must confirm the regime of Putin as a terroristic regime. This perception, this will help the normal algorithm of the action against the leader of the terroristic organizations. The same algorithm that has happened against Omar Khalafi and Bin Laden. How to solve the questions afterwards, after indulgation, including the services we could show, the Israel responsible services. I think our HUR can also do that. Is it like cruelly? Yes, it is. But what should be done when thousands of people are killed? Thank you. Thank you sincerely. Ms. Valburha, maybe you want to comment?
Yeah, what I was thinking a little bit about is that, as you know, I live in Sweden, and we are right now at a place where the axis of evil is trying to test the evil. And I'm very much reminded of a child or a dog that's trying to fight for a bigger space. And I'm always hoping that the Swedish politicians are capable of saying no to this dog and telling the axis of evil until here but no longer. So I mean, that's something that I learn in Sweden, and I'm always trying to tell it to all my friends from all the other countries, and I hope I'll be successful with it.
Thank you very much. І я би хотіла продовжити.
And I want to continue because it's clear that we all understand that united powers open competition. It must understand the war. This war is against Europe, and Europe must stand up and strengthen its presence and its participants in its war. Objectively, it's quite clear, and everyone understands it. But from history, we know there are many histories here that the Imperia is destroyed not only from the outside but also from the inside. And all of these four countries of this alliance, they have got their inner issues. We have the Russian Federation today, from the one side with a huge military budget, but on the other hand with huge issues inside the different income. And it's the same what we have with oil products. And the last idea on the buying the oil from India and China, it shows that the situation is really come close to the critical. We have the Iran, which has the idea of changing the capital Tehran to the south regions, where because of the lack of the water. And one of the experts ironically said, sorry, I forgot it, but I will remind it. Chernivtsi, he mentioned that it could be things that previously they didn't know, that there is a lack of water. That this is a question not of the ecology and resources, but the question of the effectiveness of management and current actualization of the question related to the hijab and weakening the conditions on the basic level. We see that Iranian political elite is worried about the citizens' opinion, and they see a negative tendency. Could we think about the further fall of these regimes through the inner disagreement? This is the first question. And the second question, whether we should we provide some efforts to provide attention to them inside. I understand this is not the main question we're asking, but I'm quite interested to hear your position. According to the international norms, we could not intervene into the international countries, and if we could follow international norms, we should forget about that. But from the other hand, the international laws foresees the right of the nation to self-definition. And as a many law, you could take one state that could be difficultly corrugated with the other state. From my point of view, jumping from the vision of the priority of the basic laws of rights of people, we must meet the keys of second thing. We must work on both on Russia, both in China, and the Taiwan question, for example, is still a problem for the international environment, but Taiwan showing that it's possible to develop a high level of the democracy, well technologically developed industry, and etc. But at the same time, they have some kind of not stable international condition, because the Western part doesn't want to disturb the dragon. The question is what is the legislative norm, which legislative norm is stronger? Of course we have the courts and it's wonderful, but it could last like ages and centuries, jumping from the vision that this is a fight for the surviving for us. So we must clearly do what strengthens us, and from this point of view it is we and our Verkhovna Rada, we have created the short-term like social committee for the nationalities under the Russia management, because we understand this is not a panacea. It is not something that will divide Russia, and to hope to find these notes that Russia will be divided soon. With economical problems, the imperials has survived for a long time because they have got some other basics and they have other support. Why Russians are ready to live on such low level of the life? Because in the most times they haven't seen better things, and the other things, they are clearly convinced that they have a big aim. They are saving their connections. They have the alternative picture of the reality, and that's why we should work on it. We should work with all divisions and all problems that we are facing, and all possible that we could follow the international laws, and we could like nobody said about the secret operations and secret services against us. We have it like every day. If today you ask like somebody who has on the phone the telegram, and you will have a clear understanding how Russia foreseen it like on a long level. That's why in the proportions of this, like we are in such losing situation that we must follow all the existing mechanisms, and hallelujah to the international law and our partners. It's like when we have such opportunities, when we don't have them. For a small example, you know that Red Cross is following the captured people in the places of the captures. We as adepts of the international law, we follow these monitoring missions to everywhere, up to the moments when we have got the capturing after the fighting for occurs. According to the Red Cross standards, to cross the hands with a stretching tape or to close the mouth with a stretching tape, these are tortures. So, and the Red Cross is facing, so Ukrainian soldiers face with it, provide the tortures in the first times of the capturism, and there are 86%, and then it's going to 0% during when we talk about the prisons. We follow all the standards, so, and etc. How Russia follows? They don't allow the monitoring missions of the Red Cross. That's why they have zero everywhere. And currently, so the person who will read this accountancy, it is possible to read them all. They will see who is the main aggressor. Of course, according to the international law, it's Ukraine. So that's what the question we have. You could agree me or disagree me. I'm talking about on the practice and not on the theory. I would clearly explain that the best situation on the international law is its operative development. It's not the condition of the day, it's the democracy of the freedom of the word. It's something not what happened in the past, but what should be in the future. And our weapon, our effectiveness, to be honest, if not to break the totalitarian democratic Russia, the totalitarian Russia, so it will be a big problem for the Ukraine. So we'll have the question to Ukraine. We say that yes, Moldova representatives had done a good job. They proactively defended themselves, the same as Romanians, but many times, of course, going against the standards, of course, yes, because if to talk about the pro-exhibition of Georgescu to be elected, so from the international norms, his position could be much more from the victory side, but the evil respects the power. We have got only the power of norms, legislative norms of the law. That's why we should follow all norms and all the possibilities. So how we could do this? And this is a traditional aim. The unition is united, but we're not we. The panel of this records we could see, and that's why we should like really support are they supported? Maybe yes, they hate each other. Do Lukashenko want to be on the side of the person? So of course he would like to be in there. But the question is, despite their being united, and it is possible to unite the interests through the unition of the level of vision. I will not say the values, because yes, we talk about the Bible, it's a wonderful writing, but if not church who forces to follow the Bible, providing some special norms and reasons, having a possibility to every Christianism to having it, for example, eternal life, what can be worse? Yes, if there is no element of the forcing, then the saintest thing gonna become a good Shakespeare text, but not the saint Bible. That's why it's really important to get a weapon into the hands, and really thankful to Ukrainian legislative representatives that are currently step by step collecting the media, following the Russian crimes, military crimes. In the future, we not only win on the battlefield, but we should do what has been done to the Nazi German, not to allow it to return. And the evil does not return only in one case, when it is punished, and not punished like government comes back stronger. And that's why after the Second World War has destroyed the vision of colonialism, where the colony and the colony are imperial, which is Soviet Union, and now is Russia, has fought with the Western colonialism by creating the partners all around the North. I would say, like, maybe not correct to call the North, but I mean like those territories. But we critically must understand the breaks, the disagreements. We must use them. And what is the most important, we must change the opinion of the West that it is important to be done, because currently the break in Russia within the elite that has actives formed, they're all in the affiliation of Putin, but they are different as players. They could differ if they're gonna be fought on this money, and we should make it systematically, and that their survival is directly connected. And I would agree with Mr. Pavlo, this is always about the personal survival. For Putin, for the Chinese leadership, for Taliban, for everyone, it is about the personal questions. They understand in case they lose, they just die. So maybe even from the hands of their own partners. We must be consolidated. We must follow the coincidences of our actions. Of course, we should not commit what is against our legacy norms. So the first one who is gonna use it is the person these are representatives who do not respect the international laws. But we cannot hesitate too long. The biggest problem of the democracy in comparison with totalitarian regimes, it's a big period of agreement of the critical levels. Of course, in Ukraine, we have got some kind of vaccine from it. When we have the global chaos, the government takes the society to its hands, it takes the responsibility. And in 2022, we would not survive if we waited according to the norms, if the all main decisions are taken. Everyone is on its own hands. I'm really thankful to our defenders and who has fought since 2022 without any change and are fighting even right now. These are those people. People in total are not ready for this, except for responsibilities in the constitution, and of course patriotic soul. They took the weapon to the hands and fought against the biggest fear for the democracy at that moment. Of course, the proactive action could compensate the gaps that in any theoretical level of the law, and mostly it's like a theoretical generalization that catches the reality, but the reality is again going forward, and of course we should change the narratives that we face with. Maybe anybody else wants to add anything about the possibility of following the regimes? Ms. Pavla and Mr. Ryan afterwards. I agree with that we shouldn't get aside the regulators of the international laws, but we mean all of us, those people who try to compete against this evil band, as I said. But we must support that international norms should be used as strict as possible. As a sample, I want to provide we saw the reaction on the drone fall in Poland, yes. Polish people say that we've done everything in the correct way. We have destroyed those drones, but I compare it with what has done Erdogan in 2020, on the 24th of November in 2015 with Su-24. And where is the battery effectiveness? In Erdogan, who has done everything according to the international norms, he just like destroyed the plane, and Russia afterwards hasn't done anything. If escalation happens, I wrote the same day what happened in the Poland. Yes, it will occur. It will happen. Putin has started all its famous game like frog in a pen. I will add the temperature and I will receive more and more and more. This is the main thing for him. This is what worries me the most when I check the West. It's a short phrase according to what I mentioned in the beginning. And here it was discussed a lot about religious. I with Spain discussed about our biggest friend, who is for the last months and years maybe has set apart us. And they're also like the religious people. He is a religious person. He's not maybe a Catholic person, but at least Protestant. Like, and I understand how it's possible. How is it possible to be so religious, admitting that religious not kill, don't wish the house of the neighbor, do not steal? I cannot understand it. So that's difficult for me. Mr. Reinhardt, you wanted to comment? Yes.
As far as I understood, your question was if we think that the dictatorships can fall apart by internal developments. Yeah. That's a hard question. When there are many historians here, and maybe they will then say and teach me the correct thing. But think back 110 years. In Vienna, there was Emperor Franz Joseph. Chernivtsi was part of this empire. And I think nobody in Chernivtsi believed that only 3 years later, this empire would no longer exist. I mean, it was not a dictatorship as Russia is now, yeah. But there was an external effect, and the external effect was First World War. And Austria, unfortunately, lost this war. I think Jaroslav mentioned the development in Germany and Nationalsozialism. So it was an external effect, the war which was fought by America and others against this Nazi regime, so it fell apart. There are some people in the West who believe that the Soviet Union collapsed because of some internal developments, which is true on the one side, but on the other side, there was also an external effect, and that's world economy. The Soviet Union was bankrupt, and because it was bankrupt, they had to do something, give more freedom. We had a nice conversation about perestroika yesterday evening. And with that, suddenly things were possible which were unthinkable before that. So what is my conclusion for that? Yes, the internal developments are important, but they have to be supported by pressure from outside. Without support for democratic developments in the Russian Federation, without support for the captive nations which seek for freedom and independence from the Muscovite Empire, the dictatorship will go on, and the same is with Iran and other countries.
Дякую щиро, пані Світлано.
Thank you much, Ms. Svetlana. Dear guests in the panel, I want to say that the discussion and the sample of the emphasis on that the international norms are not finished, they should be transformed, on the discussion on why have we gathered here together here. Viribus Unitis was a common efforts. We have invited the European partners not to check who's guilty and what system, religious or legislative system or a casual system, who is guilty on that people are going against, as you said, saint norms. The states go against the saint norms of the international law, and we have gathered here just to discuss and to see some common vision on how we should punish the evil. And if to talk, my colleague has been talking today on that, there are many results are collected in this, and this is restrictions in the international norm. Despite the national system, there is no the term, so that's why in the historical perspective, in 10, in 20, in 100 years and more, the evil will be punished for sure. The second thing, the international legislative institutions, they have got many, up to 10 international law, International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court. They have collected their check. Something is currently discussed. Some is in different stages of overseeing over 100 cases against Ukraine from the aggression side of Russian Federation, and international norms, the organs of the justice, they will try to have the final point, the final to put it, and like according to the international laws, and we all want it, we all wish it. In the long-term perspective, they're gonna follow the international justice as a government which is aggressor, and as the state that will be punished according to the tribunals of the Tokyo Tribunal and Nuremberg Tribunal, or some special tribunal in case of Russia. If the international community will unite its efforts, we are here to be united, we are here to be one team, and let us help both saint writing and international norms. Yeah, thank you much. We have got many questions and we have many ideas, but we have got some active audition, and I quite feel that there are some questions that you really would like to ask, but you probably form them. I would like to ask, only just present yourself if possible. We have got the first person who wants to ask a question.
Good afternoon. My name is Dmitro Zolotukhin. I'm grateful to Ms. Yuriy for the invitation and for the ability to participate. If you are comfortable, I will speak English, so that I saw that many people speak English here.
Actually, one suggestion, continuing what Svetlana said about the necessity to unite our efforts, and I would like to start from the illustration and then to show my suggestion. Talking about the implementation of the international law through the last 10-11 years, we have seen several very similar crimes. First was the downing of MH17 Malaysian flight in Ukraine in 2014. We already have the consequences of the court decision and the investigation in Netherlands, in Europe, with zero effect on the criminals, on Russian criminals. Then we have the downing of the Ukrainian passenger flight in Iran by the forces of Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is also already investigated by Ukrainian and international investigators with zero effect on Iran as a part of the axis of evil. And then we have the last year was downing of the Azerbaijan flight in the region of Caspian Sea. And I don't know if you have followed the news. Yesterday, President Aliyev received the confirmation from Putin that that was Russian missile that shut down the flight. And Putin at least said, he said that, yes, we are to blame and we apologize for this. Of course, there are different nuances and circumstances of this, but President Aliyev is not considered as the democratic leader by many of European countries. This is something which we can see from media. However, he has received the effect, not having international implementation of these efforts. So what was the difference? And we have to see what President Aliyev has done. First, he has banned Россотрудничество and Russian houses in Azerbaijan, arrested Russians who worked in there under the cover of intelligence officers, and sent out of the country part of the diplomats in Russia. So our topic is time for subjectivity and action. I propose that we use our pan-European community and movement to unite our efforts and to see whether we can ban Россотрудничество in Russian houses in European countries, what Moldova has done also. If you have seen this, Moldova made a decision to ban Россотрудничество from the country, and the result is, you already mentioned this, the elections turned to be normal. It had its effect. So unfortunately, Россотрудничество continues to work in the European Union countries, not only in European Union. And my suggestion is that we can concentrate our efforts on very similar, very specific, very concrete assignments and use our knowledge and efforts to ban Россотрудничество from these countries. And I want to resume this with mentioning what Yaroslav has said, this anecdote that about this Russian guy who got rich on the playing cards with the gentleman because he could bluff and gentleman could not. So I think that we have to admit that the agreements and the international law can play a role only among the gentlemen when everybody understand that we are playing the same rules. If one of players is not playing the rules, then there are no any rules. So what can players can do to ban this player from the game? So I think that this is very similar and adequate step that already proved its efficiency. Thank you.
Дякую щиро за вашу пропозицію. Направду це
Thank you for your offer. These are fundamental things. I see that Mr. Reinhardt wants to react.
Reaction. There is one rule in communication. It is not so important what you say. It is important what your partner is hearing or understanding. Yeah, and that's the point we had in Europe and in the Western world, this idea of change by trade. And as you said, trade only works if both sides are gentlemen. And if you have the other one who is not a gentleman, he will use or misuse your trust in this trade and turn it against you. This is exactly what Putin did with Gazprom, with Iran and all the other things, with whatever he has, using it against his trade partners, like the gentleman playing card, the not gentleman playing card with the gentleman. And you're right. Yes, we have to come on the same level. Otherwise, it can never work.
Дякую. Маємо ще одну реакцію.
Коротка просто ілюстрація. Насправді з позитивного.
Here is a short illustration. The West is hearing us. We had a case when we have forbidden Russian networks and channels, and we were criticized by the Organization of Security and Cooperation. So the Organization of Security was criticizing us for blocking the Russian channels. And now you will never see Russian state channels in any European country. There are still some private companies that are broadcasting. So united efforts are working, and it's a great practice. We can find in the law the reasons why we do that. And recently our OSINT colleagues have analyzed the Russian church placement across Europe, and we have found a very clear fact. They are either near strategic resources or NATO objects, and if we dive deeper into the root of the cause, we can persuade. The only issue is the interest. Not only Russians win from that. It's not that simple that they invite the German chancellor to their surveillance councils. And it's very important to find such cases and push it forward. I hope that colleagues from the Pan-European movement, because the Pan-European movement is represented in many European institutions, so I hope they will push forward the idea that Rus cooperation organization is just about Russia, so that's not needed. So I want to speak about the policy of sanctions that are hard And in the next step, we will ban this Russian organization because the first steps are done against that, and all we need is just unite the efforts. We have another questions in the audience. I will pass the floor to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate Professor Yuriy for the organization of this interesting international conference here in Chernivtsi. And I would like to expand a little bit more the debate, talking about the interconnections among non-actors and states. Because you are talking about the link among the Russia Federation, Iran, North Korea, China. Additionally, there are other state actors, for instance, that they have not been said here. For instance, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela. But we have also non-state actors, terrorist groups, groups that they trafficking with human beings, with drugs, and so on. We have also narco states, as for instance Venezuela. In this regard, my question is, first, which legal instruments we can use also to work in a coordinated way to avoid this cooperation among state actors and non-state actors, because these non-state actors use these states where there are not rule of law to commit their crimes with total impunity. Then which instruments we can use in reality to try to avoid all this kind of cooperation among non-state actors and states? Thank you very much.
Who is ready to answer these questions about the legal tools? Who's ready to answer this question about the legal tools we can use to regulate the illegal actions that are done?
Only use the legal instruments you have. I mean, how do you fight a dictator with legal means? Can you make an intervention in Nicaragua? Spain? Yeah? And how do you prohibit that this criminal regime is using a terrorist organization? You can only fight it with police work. I mean, that's the point. The only thing you can do is to keep your own country on the clean, yeah, to keep it clean and try to prohibit all those criminal actions. There is no real instrument against it where you can say, don't do it. This is, I mean, if somebody does not keep the rules, then he does not keep the rules. Whatever you do, you can enforce the law, you can make stricter laws, you can do whatever you want. Yeah, if I don't respect it, I don't respect it. You can only kill me. That's a solution.
I can, yes, we have a kleptocracy in America. We describe a situation, then US decide to settle some mechanism which ruin immunity of private business if business can explain where they take money for start their activity. So it's like a prevention. When we see that we don't understand legal sources of some resource, so we can ban it, we can stop it, and we can use that for like a good purpose. And not now, but previously, this mechanism somehow worked not only in US, but in France. And even our oligarchs, Igor Kolomoisky, suffered for that, and several African dictators. So it's like we using law, but as a prevention, as attacking evil, not to let them do something bad for using these sources. Sanction approach acting the same. So we predict, we have vision that something can be used for not good not good goals, not appropriate, not legal. And it's not a responsibility only for state, explain for that. But it's dangerous, we stop, and who have this source must explain. There they take it. So for African dictators who buy a lot luxury in Europe, it's impossible to explain this money because it's corrupt money, because it's bribe, it's taking international humanitarian aid for private sources. The same was with Ukraine oligarch, not less than one very famous case, Kolomoisky and his activity in USA. So it can be an example, and it can start on a national level, but it can be a pattern which can be used, for example, for European Union. If investor in very effective sphere, for example, buildings and so on, don't possible to explain there they take this money, so okay, this money can be banned. So yes, somehow it can be used, but we must act proactively, not waiting that, not using only what we have now, because yes, crime guys are very clever. They like looks on a law and understand how they will be not use them, or will be destroy some idea of balance and so on. So example exists, but still it can be done unitedly, because then US began to use this mechanism, a lot of investments come to Europe. When Europe starts to act that, it's come to Arabic country, and in Arabic country we do understand that it's more harder to but the same. So it's step by step moving. Thanks.
Я коротко скажу.
So I'll give a brief comment regarding my point of what we can do in this case. There are no strict regulations that could work against the criminals and those who work with the axis of evil. The least we can do is not working with them. We can start from ourselves, and we should not work with those who deal with them. We should not shake hands with them. We should not play their games. We must make a net for smear where we are not accepting them at all. So there is another question in the audience. So I am Vasil Poloyko from PANEUROPEAN Lviv. And I want to go back to the early discussion about Belarus. So is it the fifth element or part of Russia? I tend to believe, like Natalia does, that this is the fifth element. And my question is, don't you think that this is the weakest element in the whole evil of access? So who's ready to answer the question regarding Belarus? Theoretically, we are curious whether this is the fifth or fourth element, and we are interested in kicking that out. And officially, Europe recognizes only the representatives from Belarus that are legitimate. The family of Tikhanovsky in Belarus have no impact at all. The only Navalny, who is the only Russian opposition, are supported only by Western communities. So we know who might kick that element from the structure of evil of access, and that's the right of Kostis-Kalinovsky from Belarus that are fighting in Ukraine. And they are not eventing them internationally because they do not want to be separatists and support separatist movements. This is the biggest issue that is hanging above Western world after Chechen Republic was flooding in blood. So they're trying to understand only the decisions, not the causes of Russian actions. And we're interested in kicking that element from the evil of access, meaning Belarus. In Ukraine, we do not do any operations. We claim not to do. We only say that it all explodes on its own in Russia. And I'm not joking right now. International law is critical, and we have to use that international law is protecting the weaker, like in the example between Asia and African country. So why? Because only this way things will be balanced. We understand that Lukashenko has full control over Belarus, and we cannot officially support the opposition, especially the militarized one. And there is no other opposition effective against totalitarianism rather than the militarized one. And when we have these international panels and discussions, we as the Ukrainian delegation, considering our biased position regarding Belarus, we always invite the members of Belarus fighters who are fighting Ukraine right now. So they share their thoughts about the opportunities to change the situation in Belarus, because they are really weak there. They're much weaker than we think. And Western world is weak because they just open the border for the migrants when some conflict starts. It's very important so that law works to support the weaker position, especially if that position is supported by law.
If you allow, I will have a small comment, a very interesting position and a very interesting our common vision of the international law and the vision of the Belarus Republic, which is quite a big concern if you talk about this. We don't talk about whether it is a small state or a big state. It's a state which cannot agree its existence as the real subject of the international law. This is a big question in the inner world of Mr. Lukashenko. In the neutral world, he lives in his own reality, and he probably does not even understand that. But adding to those important moments that we have discussed, the last case of Lithuania against Belarus about the deportation, it was a quite important case that shows that international law stands not only on the side of the weak, but stands on the side of the right. It could be both big country or a small state, because there could be restrictions and from the both sides. And we talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. We talk about the moments I really create our academic partners, Mr. Sanchez. It was a pleasure for me. I have been the panel at once altogether the previous year, and we have discussed a lot. And since then, we communicate a lot, and it's a pleasure for me to see you a year after and to communicate. And the discussion, the legislative passes, as I say, is a light in the end of the tunnel. Unprecedented curses when the system of the legislation of the United States of America there is the norm, which is Magnitsky Act of the 2016, which is called after the Russian legislative representative, which allows jumping to the responsibility and to judge according to the laws of the United States of America because of the legislation restrictions and of the crimes doesn't matter on the territories as the international law. I mentioned it to compare let me feel sorry, but I'm sorry in terms of God, but I compared it with the saint writing with the Bible, but it has only the basics, which is the law, the responsibility, and they're all connected. Thank you much. I've got one more question, so please.
From Chernivtsi. First of all, I want to say thank you for possibility to be here to participation in such a nice event and for so high representations of our pan-European friends from all Europe. And by the way, last year now in October also, and I hope that it's a good tradition to meet pan-European friends in Chernivtsi in Ukraine. My very short question about the main topic of this discussion, very interesting discussion. In your opinion, how do you think, if it's possible to joining to this alliance of evil any European country, and which will be the direction or should be the direction of European Union? Thanks.
I hope not. But you never know. The strategic corruption is working. Unfortunately. Yeah? So there is no security that democracy will last forever. It is possible. And I mean, this is a serious question what you ask. I don't want to joke about that. I hope that the instruments in the European Union are strong enough to prevent such a development. I don't want to blame any country, but I think you were talking about at least one neighboring country. And it's not only this one neighboring country, there is also another one, and now we had elections in another country, and when you have corrupt politicians in power, then again, this strategic corruption is working. Yeah.
You are quite right. This thing about the strategic corruption is very important. But you are quite right. I mean, it would be good if things would sort of just go on like they are. And I must say, I always have a very positive aspect for Europe. I mean, I remember when I started to work in the Pan-European Union, there was still an iron curtain going through Europe. And my father was always saying, I'm going to live when the iron curtain is going to fall. And everybody was saying, he's crazy. And then he lived very much when the iron curtain was falling. And I must say, I'm saying now, because I'm starting to get about as old as he was when I started to work with him politically. And I'm going to see that all those countries who want to become members of the European Union will become members of the European Union. And then people say, you are out of your mind. I don't think so. So I hope that the development is going to be much more positive.
Sincerely, thank you for the answer. I see there are questions. We'll have some questions for the informal communication, but as we have a few minutes stolen from our panel in the beginning, you see, that's why it's not on, so not too critical the organizers, yes. So to be honest, I would like to, at the end, our participants of the panel to say a few final remarks, final comments on what was said, but paying attention to one short question I have: what should we do further? It's a really short, but I think maybe Miss Svetlana, let's start with you. Women should be first. The question is short, but the answer would be also analogic. We should unite. We should unite our efforts, and we should believe in victory and in honesty. Mrs. Valborg.
But I think what we should hope for is that people dare to speak openly and not hide behind paragraphs and problems.
Thank you.
Don't be scared. Try to educate young people. Teach them what democracy means. Teach them, tell them that freedom is not coming from itself. You have to fight for it, and support all those states, powers, elements in society which are fighting the evil at the moment, especially Ukraine.
Thank you.
To help Europe win this alliance of dictatorship or is evil alliance, it should be powerful and should be united. We must thank Putin and Trump, so that helped us see and help Europe become independent and strong. Thank you. The scenario is simple: not to be afraid to take responsibility for the unpopular decisions, to make it come true in life, spending at the least of time for the discussion, because the advantage of the important solution taken maybe not completely correctly is that you will have a potential to change it. If the decision is never taken, it will never be proved for the clarity or for the rightness. So we should not be deeply concerned. It should be have more action, as it's true. Thank you much. Sincerely, I would like to thank the participants of the Miss Svetlana Kravecka, Mrs. Habsburg Dutzberg, Larnald Kruchik, Yaroslav Yurchishin, and Polno Zherenko. Thank you very much for your active participants, the active position. Thank you much.
Я тільки коротко.
One more remark from me. On our right in front of our eyes, we see the question whether the international law will have the same vision and will it exist in the future the same way. We talk about real things, how to make it and how to make it come true. And to the comment of Serhiy, we will do in the second part of the October, we'll have the conferences in Chernivtsi when there will be the heating because it's really cold nowadays. So yeah, but thank you.